God of the universe, maker of the stars. Who am I that you would know my name?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode number 87 of
Yeah.
Life on Purpose with your host, Mike Clayton, the OG founder here, and myself, Alex Stiles. We are delighted to have y'all with us here as we dive into some wonderful, wonderful topics and some excellent scripture, I think, tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just, this music is going around in the back of my mind of da 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 da, the Batman theme.
Yes, sir. For those of you that don't get to that miss out on seeing our wonderful faces on YouTube or whatever, I have moved into the Batcave again.
Mm-hmm.
We are blessed and glad to have the newlyweds in the family, Sarah and Andrew, have moved into the house with us. They have my basement area, so I have moved back into the Batcave.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Only this time, Mary picked the color of the curtains back there, so it wouldn't,
Okay, well, let's go with it. What do we want to pick up from last week? Where are we going here?
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to continue this discussion and this really focus on a lot of what I don't think women, mothers, wives in general get of, and that is just the straight up, positive affirmations
Mm-hmm.
for life and for the difficulties that they face. And as we talk about motherhood of spouses of just growing as a woman that God intended you to be, naturally, Proverbs 31 should be absolutely an area at some point we go to. And I want to touch on that and go through that area there and just maybe provide some encouragement for some people that are having a rough time out there.
There you go. Okay. Well, we had also ended last program on the thought of kind of how did we get to where we are?
Yes, we would discuss that as well. Yes.
And so I just want to, I've taught on this numerous times, but I want to give a scenario, just a summary of the scenario of what has happened in the United States specifically over the last century. If we go back 100 years, there was, the typical family was mom, dad, 2.7 children or something. And dad went off to work. Mom stayed home. The children were homeschooled for a lot of times back then. And then things began to change. And I'm not trying to say that society of 100 years ago was totally godly and righteous, because, I grew up with people that were from that generation, okay? And they used to tell me that, my grandparents would tell me stories of what was happening and what they had done and as children, youth, and young people. Alex, it's a funny thing that that unrighteousness is a part of every generation.
Oh, absolutely.
Not just unique to ours, is it?
No, absolutely not. In some manner, every generation faces the same struggles.
Mm-hmm.
They may wear different faces. They may come in different flavors, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And though some people say, "Oh, the world's different than it ever has been," yes and no.
Yeah.
Sure, we have technology that has changed the face of the struggles, of the challenges.
Mm.
We may be the most advanced technology we've ever had, but that we are still all humans. We're all mortals. We're fight against the same enemy, and we serve the same God.
I think what you said, the face has changed. It's easier to find it. Okay, if you want to be an unrighteous individual, you don't have to look for it because it's going to be looking for you. All right, that is a subtle change in that. So I'm not saying that everything was totally righteous back then. Sin is sin, unrighteousness is unrighteousness. But there has been a difference in our society. And that happened right about the time of World War II. Up until that time, it was unusual for a wife, a mom, to be in the workplace. Again, I'm not saying anything wrong. I'm not trying to point fingers or say that's the exactly right thing to do all the time. because people get uptight about these things,
This
and they
is true.
shouldn't. Okay, that's the part of the problem. They don't. People can't think through things and even discuss something these days. It's really difficult. So in World War II, when we entered into this war with Germany, with Japan, my father was on a ship in the South Pacific. The men came out of the workplace and went to war, which
Mhm.
meant that the workplace was kind of open. There's nobody there to work, and they've got these shipbuilding and all of this stuff. I mean, the ship that my father was on, they were putting out a new ship up in the area of Indiana in the cornfields. These were the LSTs. They're called the cornfield ships. They were putting out a new ship every 3 weeks.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Mhm.
And so these women went into the workplace, but then when the men came home, society changed in that point because a lot of the women said, hey, I'm kind of more fulfilled in my thought process in that workplace, and so I'm going to stay there. Well, that left a void in the home, and as you know, the creation despises a void. It must be
Yes.
filled. Okay, so the men came back. Many of the women had been forced into the man's role of protector and guider in the family.
Yes.
Okay. So when the men come back, um, there's a verse in Genesis that says, and your desire shall be for your husband. Now, that's always been looked at as a blessing. Your desire shall be for your husband, but it's part of the curse. And so
Yes.
maybe a different translation would be, your desire will be for your husband's position.
Hmm.
Okay. Not as a misogynist, kind of, dominant, all those kind of authoritarian, but a position of loving, guiding, authority, protection over his family.
Mhm.
And so when he came back, the woman is now desiring that position, and the man steps out of his position willingly and becomes basically a bum to society.
Yes. Mhm.
His role is now to help produce children, not how to help raise children. And therein lies a lot of our societal chaos that we have today. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. Anytime a anytime a purpose is unfulfilled, one, that person is going to have fine dissatisfaction if they
Mm-hmm.
are not fulfilling their purpose and
Mm-hmm.
fulfilling their role. And the other part is that if a role must be filled, but the person is not there to fill it who is meant for that position, I got to reach for like the second best. All right. The cardiac ICU gets understaffed, and they call, I sign up for shifts, and they put the brain nurse in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can do it, but I'm not the heart nurse.
Mm.
I'm not as good at the heart. So there ends up being, this is not a perfect example, but I'm trying to make an example of it that yes, as a woman, you can fulfill uh, the primary role, that role of the man as the provider. You can, but it's going to be more difficult for you if
Yeah.
that's not the purpose that you've been set in for.
And
And the entire
congratulate.
job's
Yeah.
going to be more.
Kolakavot, more power to the women who have been forced into that role. And that's what I'm trying to
Yes,
very timidly sidestep here and not judge in no way judging someone who has been forced into that role
exactly.
or has decided to have kind of that role, but is trying to balance out the whole thing with family. Go ahead.
No, I agree absolutely. And I'm very passionate in this area of subject, and I think that I have some foundation to understand. It's still like a 1 to 5 male to female ratio of men to women in the nursing workforce.
Hmm.
So I'm like the last guy that you're going to find that doesn't have a deep respect for what women are fully
Mm.
capable of in the workforce. Um, and I still talk with ones that will not even half jokingly say, "I wish I was a stay-at-home dog mom." It's just running, the single ones, right?
Mm.
The ones that don't have children.
Yeah.
And the
Dog
one thing I
mom
constantly,
versus brain nurse. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, hey, I get it. And the same side of that is that I constantly speak with nurses who are constantly juggling their shifts, there's not night shift nurses that hate being up at night, that stay up for every single night and wreck their sleep schedule because they can get off work in time to go take care of their children and make sure they get to school.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I have the deepest respect. They'll be
Sure.
like, we have this staffing thread where we'll send each other messages, and the response says, "Hey, my kid's got this at school. Can anybody swap with them?" Like that is always what the women are asking to swap shifts for. All right.
Hmm.
I'll pick on fellow men. Okay, we're bums. Like, hey, I got a football game. Anybody swap with me? No, the women ask to swap a shift. It's always something for their kids, for
Yeah.
their family.
Yeah.
And I have the deepest respect, absolutely, with those that cycle that because I see that yearning desire there is primarily for the family.
Hmm.
And men will, in many ways, push a career higher than a woman will because their primary desire will many times will be the career and the focus on the career.
Which
Now,
has,
this is
which has means that they have taken themselves out of the position of being the protector of the home, and they've now embraced the job or role of being the provider for the home.
yes.
Okay.
And I've found in myself that that very much tied to a terrible self-image
Mm.
of that man. And I think we'll
Mm.
dig further into this in there. So, but I'll touch on
Mm.
this briefly because I've been in that role myself, where like ah, I can't in any way be any kind of a good dad, but I can make sure the bills are paid
Mm.
and just I'll work some overtime because I'm not a good dad when I'm home anyway, but I can make sure the bills are paid. And
Mhm.
now we need to dig into this when we focus more on the men's
Yeah.
side of
Yeah.
this moving
Yeah.
forward. But in many ways, yes. So there's men who fall out of it because they don't believe they can do the job.
And
And that then creates a void
hmm
there.
and see, I tell young men when I'm counseling with them and when I'm speaking at a young adult or youth conference of some type, is if you want to be a better provider for your family, be a better protector, and the Creator will make you a better provider.
Yes,
See, when we
yes.
focus on the right thing, He steps in and
Hmm.
helps us with the gaps along the way. But when
Yes.
if we're still focused over here on the wrong thing, we then don't have his complete help in trying to do what the right thing is. He's got to redirect us into that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Again, we're you're not lining up with what he's clearly said. I will bless you in these efforts, but
Mm-hmm.
we're over here working on something that we're without his blessing. Like, so you can either get your effort returned to you, or you can get your effort and his effort turned to you.
Mm-hmm.
And this concept of being protector, people are like, well, what are you talking about? We don't exactly get raids across the border anymore. Like, no, we're not talking about physical protection. Well, not on U.S. soil.
Not
It's
yet.
been a long time since Franklin, North Carolina got raided, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, Praise him. We live in a very peaceful society, and we are not grateful enough for that.
Yeah.
But I'm not speaking of physical protection. But what about protecting your kids' hearts?
Mm-hmm.
What about protecting their their manners? What about showing them a good example? Being home to show them an example of how a man should treat a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Because what kind of examples are they seeing out in society?
Mm-hmm. What kind
And
of example are they seeing on television?
yes,
What kind of example are they hearing in commercials? I mean, one of my pet peeves is this group of I guess basically male hating individuals that have gone through school, advertising school, and every commercial, and in fact, television programs make the man to be out to be a total buffoon.
Yes.
You know, give example that I've used when I did a message years ago on sheep, wolves, and sheepdogs, or sheep, wolves, and shepherds is what I turned it into. And there was a commercial at the time that was on, and this couple had moved into a new house, and it was 2-story, and they'd just gone to bed, and they're laying there in bed, and they hear this noise downstairs, and the male, I won't call him a man, I'll call him a male, turns to his wife and says, "Do you want me to go check it out?" And
Yeah.
and you know, and people may think that that Kathy would not like what I'm about to say, but I've never asked my wife if it's okay to protect my home.
Exactly.
Okay, I never.
Exactly, sir.
And,
Yeah.
and she's really, from what she says in public, you know, I think she's kind of okay with that.
Yes.
But protecting our home goes into many other areas.
Yes, absolutely. Like, what examples are you setting at home? What are you watching on the television?
Ah.
What do you turn off when it comes on? Say, no, we're not
Mhm.
watching that in this house.
Mm-hmm.
You think your children don't notice if you do that?
Oh yeah.
Like, I asked myself these questions that, I changed as I grew in there. Television is not really my thing. I almost never watch it. I play video games. I asked myself, what games am I playing?
Mm-hmm.
What's coming across that screen?
Mm-hmm.
Can I sit here and play this and be absolutely fine if my kid walks up and looks at it?
Mm-hmm.
And if the kid walks up and I'm like, why am I playing it if I have a problem? You
Mm-hmm.
see, it raises me to another level. No, no, let me clarify. It makes me aware of the standard that I was already supposed to being held to.
Mm-hmm.
I am more aware of the standard I should be held to because I'm aware of the example I should be setting for my children.
It was not unusual for me to, growing up in the 70s, okay, prior to phone, we always knew where the phone was. It was connected to the wall.
Yeah.
Before social media and all this other stuff, it was not unusual to go to somebody's house and go to the restroom, and there's a load of magazines there, and there's
Yeah.
children in the house.
Yes.
And then you're going to tell, and then you're going to take everybody to church on Sunday morning and hear a
Yes.
sermon against that. But it's, excuse me, something's wrong here. And
Yes.
you can fool adults. Children, you can't fool them. They're too smart. They
No,
haven't gotten stupid yet.
this is true. There's honesty within children, and there is a lack of acceptance of things being a lack of acceptance of double standards.
Mm-hmm.
Children don't accept double standards.
Nor should they be asked to,
Exactly.
because the truth is that the Almighty Himself, our Creator, God, does not accept double standards. Okay.
No.
I mean, He's got like one standard. So if we're living our life in order to please Him, then that's just going to trickle down to
Mhm.
everybody else. But if we're living a double standard before Him, don't think you're going to fool everybody else, or anybody else for that matter, because people are going to see through it.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And that and maintaining in setting these standards, a huge portion of it, of course, is keeping your priorities right.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing is that, yeah, as I bring this around, is that I find many women who have the lowest opinion of themselves, right, are the ones who have not backed down on these standards of their family as of their children, especially as a priority, and the great sadness of then providing for, their third child, their adult child, their husband. That's an entire other subject that we will go into. I hear that, and it makes me angry, and it makes me sad for the family. Now, there are manners in which I am provided for. Yes, I sometimes look good when I get dressed, but only when my wife color coordinates my clothing. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about that, of that nurturing of I'm going to groom you and make sure you look like.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the one that has to, I'm going to go clean up his mess. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Um,
I mean, I do dress myself, by the way.
that I'm proud of you. In a decade or so, maybe I'll have learned to color coordinate.
Yeah. But, men or males, I have a hard time calling some males men, that are basically what you just said. They're, the adult child in the room. They didn't marry a wife, they married a mother,
Yes.
you know. Guys, I remember saying something on the golf course, uh, about, I said, yeah, I got to go home and do some laundry. And they're like, your wife doesn't do the laundry? Well, let me tell you, Kathy would do the laundry any day of the week. Okay. But I looked at him and said, I didn't marry a slave. I said, I'm the one that dirtied the
Exactly.
clothes, and I have the
Exactly.
time to be able to do the laundry. Okay. Kathy works
Yeah.
hard at what she does. She does a lot of things that people don't even know about. She runs the whole administrative aspect of this ministry.
Hmm.
um, and never never gets any really payback for it, for the most part. But
Mm.
so I did not. I wasn't looking to marry my mother. That's
Hmm.
gross. It's really
Yes.
gross. I'm not looking to marry. I wasn't looking to marry a slave girl.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, but there are a lot of males out there that have mommy issues because
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
married their mommy, or they're trying to find a mommy out there that, and they need to basically put on their big boy training pants and grow up,
Yes.
become a man that's
Yes.
worth being looked up to.
Yes, absolutely. If you want the respect in the household, be worthy of it, and change that statement. Like, oh, you help your wife with the dishes. I'm like, no, I do the dishes. Right? I don't help my wife with it. This is a joint effort of maintaining the home and all aspects of the home that I can maintain.
Yeah.
Um,
I know
and the
we're
subject
sidetracking some of the
we
stuff you wanted to go
sidetracked a bit.
to.
Yeah, we did sidetrack a bit, but
Yeah,
yes,
let me give one more pet peeve.
please.
Because I am the OG, so I need to, I don't remember things as well as you do, because you're like the brain person or brain nurse or whatever. Um, is that, I work, I play golf with guys, and they're like, well, I got to go home and do my honey-do list. And I'm like, I don't have a honey-do list. They're like, what? I said, no, I look for things that I need to do and I do it. The last thing, once in a while, Kathy will say, like, you forgot to do this. Okay. Yeah, I did. I forgot to do that. Okay. But I'm not sitting on the couch watching somebody throw a ball somewhere, and my wife's over there having to write down a list of things that need to be done because I'm too stinking lazy to get off my recliner and do it and take responsibility for the things that need to be done around the house.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I'll tie this in and I'll go back to the subject. But this entire process, that women would have a lot better opinion of themselves if they were supported by a man who cared about her and showed that she was worthy of being respected.
Mhm.
I don't blame women for the state of families in America.
No,
I blame
no,
men primarily. 100% men take majority of the
absolutely.
blame in my book.
Absolutely. Somebody starts talking to me about it and says, well, that woman's a Jezebel. I said, well, let me go meet Ahab. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
I've stopped
Yes.
people in their tracks on that one so many times. And if anybody doesn't know, so Jezebel was a very controlling person in the scripture. But Ahab was your basic Mr. Milk Toast, and did not deserve the title of man. He was basically a male by birth, and that was it. And so don't talk to me about Jezebel spirits, which I've heard so many times. It's nauseating. Just introduce me to Ahab so I can slap him one time. You know,
Indeed.
grow up, dum
Mhm.
dum.
Yes. And this interesting is we're talking about this crisis of women having such a horrible self-image. But let me tell you, my thoughts on this is that some of the women Is it that the women that have refused to back off on these standards, like we were talking about, family
Hmm.
first and all that,
Hmm.
many times are the ones who believe themselves to be terrible parents, terrible with a terrible mother, a terrible wife, a terrible whatever. Well, if you're out there having this thought process about you, I immediately think you're probably a pretty good mom, probably a pretty good wife, because otherwise you wouldn't care and you wouldn't be judging yourself as to whether you were meeting these standards there. So some of the women that think the worst about themselves are some of the best wives and mothers that I know.
Oh, tell me. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. You know, Alex, having a, examining ourselves. All right. The Apostle Paul actually said, let a man examine himself to see whether he be in the faith or not. Okay.
Yes.
Self-examination is a good thing. And one of the greatest friends that a person can have in life is an honest mirror.
Yes.
Okay. When you can look at yourself and not see yourself as more than you are, and also not see yourself as less than you are. We all
Yes.
look in the mirror and see ourselves as, flaws. If you don't yet, wait until you get older. All right. It's like, where did that happen? Where did that oh no. I'm getting older, and it's just something that's going to happen. But it's a part of who you are. So, sometimes embracing flaws can help you to overcome the flaw.
Yes.
If I have a hard time at disciplining myself or whatever, if I embrace that, then maybe I can overcome that. So yeah, I totally agree with you. If the enemy does this thing of condemning, so he'll make you look at the mirror and go, "Wow, I'm so dumb and stupid, and I can't do this right and this right and this right," and then somebody will say something offhand, and you go, "Oh, they were talking about me." And it's just this spiral, the crazy spiral down. It's the whirlpool that draws you in and doesn't let you out until you're drowned.
And the
Um,
next step after that, the next step up of that is then you read a chapter like Proverbs 31,
mm,
and the enemy then turns that against you till you are discouraged.
hmm
I learned that there are women that hate that chapter. I'm
hmm
like, what? Because they see it as an unattainable level, that it's a judgment. I could never be that. And that's that final step that the enemy will take you to, is to take something that literally this beautiful
Oh
chapter that
yeah.
is praising women, it's praise
Mm-hmm.
of all that they do. But a woman will look at that and say, but that's not me because I don't do this right and this right and this right. Well, if you're standing yourself judging yourself, I'll say it again, for thinking that you haven't met these standards, you're probably a whole lot closer to meeting those standards than you think.
Yeah. And it's funny how the enemy can let me just give you a crazy one. So a woman can be reading Proverbs 31 and goes to verse 24, 21. It says, when it snows, she has no fear for her household since all of them are doubly clothed. And she goes, I'm a failure. It doesn't snow here. I live in Florida. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, people may think that's the silliest thing that you've ever said, Mike. And I've said some silly things, but let me tell you, I understand how the enemy works in people's lives. And it's something that's hard to. Some of these things are hard to overcome. I've lived long enough to know that.
Yeah, and
Trying to
I'll
go ahead.
no, I'll give that same process of it, which I was having this very conversation with my wife, and I did get her permission to share some of the things she said to
Mm,
try to help with this. And she said, I read the verse where it says she goes out and buys a field, and I'm like, well, how does she have money to do that? I'm working and I don't have any extra money, therefore I'm not that woman, and all the money goes towards the bills. Therefore, I hate this verse because I'm a failure. I'm like, it's speaking of the character,
mhm,
not just of the direct action.
mhm.
You don't have to have money to be this woman. It's the character of the woman that she works to be responsible for the money, that she cares where the money is spent.
Mhm.
and that she works to put the money into, that getting in the making sure her lamp burns all night long, that she's looked ahead and made sure she's got enough lamp oil.
Hmm.
Can't speak. Enough lamp oil. That she's looked ahead and made sure her children are clothed, that she
Hmm.
cares about these things. This
Yeah.
is what is the treasure.
Yeah.
Not whether the woman, not the direct quotations of this woman has double clothes and there's snow and there's money to buy a field with. It's a praise of finding a woman who has a character that cares that these things are met. But I'll tell you, there's a final verse in there that there's three verses towards the end there that we men collectively, males who are not men, fail at. Because it says her children praise her, her husband praises her. There's part of your job, men, is that you praise your wife and you teach your children how to praise their mother, because that is how they learn to praise their wife one day.
Hmm.
And the other verse that I read it as a command to the family, and that is somewhere around one of the very last verses. It says, "Give her a share of all she produces." Because I tell you, at my household, sometimes I got to make sure that my wife actually fixed herself a plate. Like I've got to fix her a plate because she'll fix everybody else's plate. She'll sit down and look at her. I'm like, I mean, thank you for serving me, but where's your plate?
Mm. Yeah.
There's a command there that we as children and as the husband give her a portion of all she has produced. Because that woman that meets these virtues many ways is often the one that neglects herself. She may be taking care of y'all, but you got to step up and make sure she's being taken care of.
Mhm. I could go into a lot of examples there, and I can't. But I've known instances in which, a person would buy, a family pack of food, of meat, and there would only be enough, meat for the husband and children, and they would sit there and eat the bones of it. There was not a piece for them. Um, I mean, those are the women, that you don't see all the time. You don't see the sacrifices. When I started pastoring many years ago, um, I was making just over $100 a week, and let me tell you, we had two children. Then all of a sudden, Daniel comes along. We were supported by other people, and so my income was a little bit more than that, but it was tight. I mean, it was really, really tight in those days. And Kathy would go to thrift stores, and our children were always dressed well. They were always clean. They didn't go hungry. And she'd be like, I found this and I found this, and she just became this person. I never even knew that person in her, but she did what she had to do in order to bring us through that time period. And if I never heard her complain about it. Um, Probably ought to tell her you know, thank her more than I do for those days. But because the reason I'm here today is because she put up and endured those days. Our wives do so much, and you're right. They don't get the credit they deserve. But in the end, um, an old acquaintance of mine was working at a jail and a prison actually, and it was coming up on Mother's Day, and he went to the Hallmark was in the same state, in the same area of the state that he was a prison guard at. And they went to that Hallmark and asked for Mother's Day cards. They came back with like a van full, and they told the prisoners that they could, each person could have a card, and they'd, mail it and everything. They were all gone within moments. So they thought,
Hmm.
well, hey, great deal. We'll get a Father's Day. We'll do the same thing for Father's Day. Went and got these cards, came back. 3 men in the prison got cards to send to their fathers. You watch sports. What are the guys? Hi, mom.
Yes.
You know, hi,
Yes.
mom. The one that actually was cried the tears over your birth. That's the one that you end up remembering. I think at a deeper level. A mom has a place that I don't think us guys can understand, Alex. You
No,
know,
I agree.
yeah, your kid does something and it's like, they'll get over it. You know, they hurt themselves. Oh, well, it's just pain. It'll go away. It's just, it's weakness leaking out. Okay. It's no big deal. But they feel something that guys can't feel. And
Yes.
and that's an aspect of womanhood that they've got to figure out. This you talked about the men from Mars or whatever it is, one of the planets, the women from the other planet. I never read the book, but I know I live on a different planet, so I don't even know. Probably most people have never been at the planet I live in, so it doesn't really matter. But understanding these things about the different aspects, I have a
Mhm.
difficult time with that, with embracing that nurturing thing.
Mhm.
You know, when Daniel he can quote this probably in my voice, uh, he'd get hurt. Okay. He'd come to me and say, yeah, I know. It's just weakness leaking out. Okay. Give me a Band-Aid. Oh, okay. Off we go. We got work to do, dum dum. Don't
Yeah.
hurt yourself again. And we move on. But that's the difference between us. But when we come together and we merge those two things, what do we have? We have a wholeness of being, which is the likeness of the creator upon this earth.
Yes, that combination both of nurturing and of commanding to be strong,
Hmm.
of catching you in your weakness and commanding you to be strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, I think many times it's the maddest I've ever made my wife is when I wasn't as worried about the child getting hurt as she was. I will
Hmm.
say, you think it's bad, just yourself. You were military, we're probably about equal. But have a nurse look at it like, meh, it's not broken.
Hmm.
There's a next level joke level. No, son, we go to the ER when we're dying.
Yeah. That's true. That's
Yes,
true.
yes.
One more
Uh,
thought on this male thing. And I know we'll get back, we're going to run through a lot of different stuff maybe next week. But again, I get to say it when I think about it. I've heard men say, well, I demand respect. Listen,
no
bozo.
good.
Yeah. You never demand respect from anybody. You can demand fear. Okay. You can produce fear in someone, but you can never demand respect. Respect must be earned. Don't ever ask me to respect you
No, it's
because
a useless statement.
it ain't happening. Okay. It ain't, in fact, a person that would ask me to respect them, I will
They've
probably
lost my
never,
respect.
I'm probably never going to respect that person because you don't understand what it even is. So we must earn that respect. We have to, this thing of a male being the protector of the home,
Mhm.
that has to be earned. I have
Yeah.
to earn my wife, my children when they were in the house. I had to earn the respect that I would protect them. You have to, and in life, we live in a place today that is so confused about roles and positions and all of these things, like it's supposed to be handed to you.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, you young people know that, I do not, don't come to me talking about the snowflakes because I want to talk to you about the cloud they came from. All right. Yeah. But,
Mhm.
you have to earn the right. You have to earn the promotion. I give you a crazy example. I was, it was my first job working in an office supply store in Jacksonville, Florida, small office supply store. And so, I was probably 15 at the time. And I had this lady who was my boss, wonderful lady. But I heard them talking somewhere along the way, her and the people in the office right there, about the minimum wage was going to go up. Now I'm making less than minimum wage, which is $1.50 an hour at the time. Yeah, I've worked some really high paying jobs, okay? But I'm making $1.50, and I hear somebody off the hand say, "Well, minimum wage is going up." And so me, dum dum, at 15 years old, I looked at Jean and I said, "So you're going to have to give me a raise." She looked at me and said, "Follow me." And I'm like, "Uh-oh." We walked to the back of the store, and she looked me right in the eye and she says, "I don't have to give you anything because we're exempt from that anyway. But besides that, you will never tell me what I'm going to give you. If you want a raise, you get out there and earn the raise. Now get back to work." I'm like,
That's
"Oh,
wonderful. That's
yeah.
wonderful.
Life is not given to you."
That's the sad part. That's what's not taught.
Yeah.
We're teaching our children the opposite.
Yeah.
That, you deserve this.
Oh, life
Eh,
owes you something.
It owes you something. Yeah.
Yeah. Life
Life
doesn't
doesn't owe
owe
you
you anything.
anything except a death later and
Mhm.
taxes.
And you can actually get around taxes, but other than that, there's probably been about 10, 12 billion people that have lived since creation. Only 2 have made it out of here alive. Your chances of skirting around that one are they're slim. Okay.
Slim.
So you're going to have to put something into life. And this goes to being mom, dad, and where does it begin? If mom and dad are not holding their children to a place of responsibility because they're not holding themselves to a place of responsibility, guess what's going to be passed on? It's called generational curses.
Yes.
When I took over as pastor down in Florida, I had never known so many people that were on welfare, food stamps, had been in prison. I'm like, has anybody around here not been to jail besides me? It was in the culture.
Hmm. Sad. Truly a generational
Yeah.
curse at that
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
Welfare was like in the culture. And people grew up knowing how to play that system. And we were able to, thank God, step into some of those people's lives and help them and get out of that cycle because I didn't accept that cycle as normal.
And that, again, as we've talked, that comes down to um, setting that generational curse being broken or being adjusted is foundational at you. Like, oh, I just tell my children, teach them how to live. Like, no, you have to show them.
Mhm.
So, like, I don't get to tell them when to turn the television off because something's wrong on there. If they don't see me turn something off, or say no, we're not going to watch that because of this. It does me no good then to say it because they're not going to respect my saying it if my actions clearly demonstrate that I'm not um, clearly demonstrate that I don't mean what I say. And if you want your children to work hard, to be successful, and I mean successful inside, not in the modern culture of I'm going to be a millionaire at 20 delusional thing, but to be truly successful in a blessed and prosperous life, um, let them see you that you go to work when you're sick. That
Mhm.
when you're sick and you're miserable, like, no, boys, I'm sick, I'm miserable. We're not going to play many games. I've been sick for 3 weeks, and I was thinking of this, like, how am I? What can I do as a dad right now
Mhm.
when I'm so miserably sick and I can barely walk around? Like, I can say, okay, no, I'm so sick. I'm not doing much with all, but together we're going to get the laundry and the dishes done. Because just because we're sick, the foundational things that a house is made didn't end.
Mhm.
I really wanted to lay in a corner and curl up in a hoodie and be a lazy bum, sir. But literally, the only reason the laundry and the dishes got done every day I was homesick was my looking at my children thinking, and looking at the world around in terror, not in terror, but in real concern as to what I see out there, and being like, I got to teach them different.
Mhm.
So I have to show them different.
Mhm. Yeah. Hmm. Well, I think we've given people some. I don't know if we've given anybody things to think about. Unfortunately, I've given myself too many things to think about.
Right.
So see, instead of
Agreed.
me keeping you awake,
Now you're costing yourself sleep. Oh, the irony, sir.
yeah, I know. But you know, the thing is of life, and this goes to whether you're a mom, a dad, a wife, a father, a husband, whatever it is, understanding that you're never going to get to the place of perfection,
Mhm.
but you never accept the place that you're in. The man that's over one of my shoulders there, I don't see, okay, because my camera, this is a different camera that I usually use up there, and I can't see over my shoulder. John, I was talking about John Faust this past Shabbat, and we were discussing one day. He was 84, and we were discussing issues of being a male. Okay, I was 28 at the time. And I said, John, you know, when do you kind of get past some of these temptations in life? He says, well, I know it's past 84.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. But the thing about it, you'll never get to the place that you don't have these feelings, these temptations, all of these things. But life is about continuing to, on a daily basis, trying to overcome them.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
the people that you see around you that are trying to overcome them, try to help them, try to support them.
Yes.
I don't have, you know this about me. You've been around me long enough. I have no patience for a person that accepts their sin, that accepts their faults, that accepts their mediocre lifestyle. I have no patience for that at all. And I'm probably not going to start doing it tomorrow. Okay. But on the other hand, I should have the same amount of conviction over my own self.
Yeah.
You know, someone once said, and I'll finish with this: we should have great mercy on other people and no mercy upon ourselves.
I understand that.
I'm still working at both.
Yeah. Yes, understandable. In that process, though, of having no mercy on yourself, do understand, though, of course, that your Father is the one that has mercy towards you.
Yeah.
In that.
Yeah.
Your Heavenly Father in that.
Yeah. I know that. Got that one. All right. Hey, thanks. I know that you're still a little bit on the whatever the under the weather thing is. That's you, and praying for your total healing in this and restoration, because I know you want to do more than just dishes and laundry.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
I appreciate y'all.
All right. Everyone, thank you for watching, and continue to seek the one who created you. You never know. He may have plans for you for good and not for evil, to give you a life, a future, and a hope. Till next week, Alex.
Till next week, Mike. Take care.
Who am I that you would know my name? What kind